Hey guys, what's going on? Crazy23 here, and today we are doing the mod guide for the Nerf Elite XD Stryfe. Alright, so as usual, I'm going to start off with the tools you're going to need. To start, you're going to need some clippers, wire strippers, number 0 screwdriver, a flathead screwdriver, solder, soldering iron, and some grease as usual. Right, first of all, we need to get into the blaster. So if you have your magazine in there, take it out. And for safety, I always take out my batteries so I don't get electrocuted when I'm soldering. Just put them to the side. I just leave my jam door off. Alright, so now you can flip over your blaster to the side that the screws are on and start unscrewing. Okay, now that you've undone all the screws on your blaster, get your flathead screwdriver and just gently pry open the shell, like I'm doing. I do this so that I don't flick the whole shell in half and all the screws go flying. Now that your shell is just easily able to take off, just take it off, leave all the screws in there. That's what I do so I can keep track of the screws, and just simply put it aside. Okay, now we're inside the Stryfe. What I'm going to start off doing is by removing the mechanical locks, and the first lock we're going to get rid of is this lock up here. This is your dart lock. This lock prevents you from pulling the trigger if there's no dart in the magazine. So simply when the dart's in the magazine, that'll push that up and it'll let it fly through. The way you remove this lock is by simply pulling it out and you're done. Put it aside, you don't need it. Next lock I'm going to be taking care of down here is your rev lock. Now this lock down here prevents you from pulling the trigger if you are not revving. So the way you take care of this is you unscrew this screw down here, lift off this plate, you'll see this grey piece down here, just lift it out, simple as that, put it aside, put the rev switch back on, put the spring, put the plate on, get your screw, screw it back down. Simple as that. Okay, next lock we're going to be taking care of. We have to take off this screw up here. You need to keep this screw. This is an important screw. Just set that aside. Lift this lever off and just set it aside like this. And unscrew this screw as well. Do your trigger. Set that aside. Take your trigger off. Put it aside. These two screws here, unscrew to remove this plate. Simply lift it off. Now, this is sort of a mechanical lock because it does this here will stop you from pulling the trigger if you do not have a magazine in there. So you just get rid of these parts, put them aside, and I'm going to be getting rid of this electrical lock here when I do the rewiring guide. So if you are not doing a rewire, just simply take the plate off, take those two parts out, and then screw it back in. Simple as that. Now for the rewiring guide, I'm going to basically take apart the blaster so it's just down to its bare minimum and it's really easy to work with. So I'll just fast forward this bit up and join me when I'm done. Take me out and we'll karaoke. Tonight we feel famous, don't we? Pick me up and we'll make a movie. I'm acting like the world can't hold me down, down, down. desolder these two connections up here from your battery tray so that I'll just have the wires, and it's going to be much easier to work with when it's out of the blast rack. Working with is our electrical components. Now all these here are locks besides this here. This is your trigger switch down here, your rev switch, sorry. The way I know this is that it's the white wire with your positive wire that goes through this switch. Keep this switch, this is the only switch you're going to need to keep, and that's basically it, that's all you need to know for that. This up here is a thermistor, which I'm also going to be getting rid of. This basically stops you from using high voltage and just drains out some of the volts that go to the motor. So we're going to be taking care of that. These two locks here as well, and also these resistors on the motor. So what I'm going to start off doing first is by getting rid of the electrical locks, which is very, very simple. Just get your clippers, clip the ends off these wires, like that. Now get your wire strippers, find the right notch in it to get rid of the rubber. Press down, pull, and there you go, fresh wire there. Do it with the orange wire as well. Press down, pull, there you have it. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is get these two ends and just basically wrap them around each other. Now that they are wrapped around each other, just make sure it's quite strong. Now all you're going to want to do, get some solder in your soldering iron and solder the two connections together. As you can see now, that's a very strong connection, and that's not going to come apart easily. Now onto our next lock, which is this lock here. Now you may get confused with these three wires, but I assure you it is very simple. All you're going to want to do is clip all these wires here. So get rid of it, like that. The green wire from this switch goes to the thermistor, which we're getting rid of anyway, so you do not need that wire. Now the red wire goes to your motors. We need that wire and the orange wire. So what you're going to want to do is repeat what I have just done to the last two wires on these two wires. Okay, so now that's done, we're going to be moving on to the thermistor. Now, this is very simple. This black wire here, you need to keep. This is your negative wire that runs from your motors to your battery terminal. What you're going to want to do is clip that black wire, and that's it. You do not need this. You can keep this wire if you're going to be doing other modifications. I usually keep any spare wire just in case. This wire actually I'm going to use for the motors. So yes, keep the wire if this is the only wire you have for this blaster. This wire will do just fine. So now onto the motors. What you're going to want to do, some people rip these and cut these off, these resistors off. What I'm going to do is actually desolder them from the terminals, because it is a much safer way of getting rid of them. And I've had experiences in the past where I do rip the terminals off, and it's not the best feeling when you do it. So just go ahead and desolder them. Okay, now that's done. As you can see, the solder is still on the connections there, so you can just solder them back on there using the existing solder on there, which is quite high quality solder. So now what you're going to want to do is get rid of the red wire from these resistors. So I just pull these resistors down like that so I can get a better cut in there. Clip that. There's your red wire, and do the same for the black wire. These are useless, you can throw them out unless you need a resistor for something. Okay, now for the kind of hard part. This is where we need to make wire to take the place of the resistors which connected the motors together. Now the way you're going to want to do this is with the green wire, basically measure across and then clip it like that at the end. So now this wire is going to take its place there. But what we need to do is make a we need to file down the ends, and we need to make a connection in the middle for this wire to wrap around. I'll make one now. Okay, as you can see, I've taken both ends off the wire. Now I need to make a connection in the middle. What I usually do is just get a knife and just scrape off the plastic, the rubber insulator. Be careful you don't cut the wire. Okay, so that's what your wire should look like once finished this. Now what you're going to want to do is get your red wire, take some wire in front of it, like that, rip it off. Get your red green wire and wrap it around the middle part that we've just cut out, like so. Wrap it around, giving it a nice strong connection, and then obviously put solder on it. Okay, that's on there nice and strong now. Now what we can do is solder these two connections onto the motors, and then repeat the same process for the black wire. Now make sure your positive connections at the front of the motors, so that the motors are spinning the right way. If not, they are going to be spinning backwards and you're not going to be pushing any darts through it. So just make sure that's correct and then solder them on. Welcome to the new age, to the new age, welcome to the new age, to the new age. I'm radioactive, radioactive. I'm radioactive. Okay, now that your connections are all well and soldered together, you can solder them back onto your blaster shell. Now, what you're going to want to do here is get your blaster like this. Make sure your connections are facing this way, like that. And what I tend to do is just wrap my wires around this little tooth bit here, because that's where the wires actually go, along this seam along here. So just bend them through like that. Put the front nozzle on when you put the end motors down. It just makes it a lot easier putting it back together. Push it down like that. Wrap the wires down through the blaster. This goes down here to your trigger. Now I've used quite a bit more wire than I should have needed to use, so I might just slim that down so that it's not so much dead wire there. connect your wires to your battery terminal. Now this bit can get a bit confusing, but just stick with me and you should be alright. Now this white wire here needs to go at the bottom battery terminal, down here. Now there's still some solder left over there from the existing solder connection on there, so what I'm going to do is just re-solder that on there. Perfect. Just like that. And then for your black wire, tiniest bit of wire, so I'll just skip this bit and join me when I'm putting the parts back together. Okay, we're now on to the final part of the mod guide, reassembling. Now that you have all of your wiring components put back in, what I'm going to do now is give everything a quick re-lubricate and then put everything back in. So I'll show you how to do that. So the stuff I'm going to lubricate is stuff like the trigger mech and the the mag holder, the mag release button. So what I'm going to do is just basically put it on contact points. So all you're going to want to do, get a bit of grease on your finger, as so. Make sure you got a cloth so you can wipe your hands after this, and then just put it on high frequent contact points on the blaster. Things that I've wanted to re-lubricate are done now. I'm not going to go completely over the top with it because I don't really want half a kilo of grease inside of my Nerf Stryfe. Okay, so the first components I'm going to put back in are the lanyard and sling points, which there's one down on the handle here, and there's one up the top here. Make sure this one is in the right way, because sometimes it doesn't really fit in, like that way, it doesn't go that way. It goes this way. And it looks weird, but there we go, it's in here. The next component I'm going to put back in is my access door. I've even re-lubricated this, so it should be good. Next component is the trigger, like that, nice and smooth. And now for the actual dart pusher itself, which goes on this post, and make sure you get your spring and put it on this back post here. That already feels very smooth just by re-lubricating it, and overall for years to come and operating this blaster, it's going to be very smooth and give it a much better feel to it. Screw in there, and then put this screw on the trigger as well. The final two bits you are gonna want to remember are your two attachment tooths, which go through here. And your blaster, I've done this several times and I've forgotten to put tooths back in. You've got to open it back up, and it's really annoying. My hand is still working. And now the final screw you're going to want to put in clip release. And there you have it. Make sure your connection is working. I'll put my batteries in. And as you can hear, they are spooling up quite fine. So now just get your other half of the shell, put it on. I'll screw this down, and then we're off to the firing test. going to fire 6 single and 6 at rapid fire. Okay, to conclude this mod guide, the Nerf Stryfe has got some increased ranges, but most of all, what all these modifications have done is made the blaster very smooth to operate and very nice. From re-lubricating and taking all those locks out, it's just very smooth on the trigger. It's just so nice to operate. The mag release is just so much more crisp now. The ranges kind of have improved. I would say you're going to get maybe a couple more FPS, not a dramatic amount, but if you really want to get some good ranges out of these, just go get some high voltage batteries, which I'm planning on doing with this blaster. But what all these modifications have done is allowed you to use those batteries for that thermostat up the back here that we've removed, that will prevent you from getting high voltage batteries if you have not taken that out. So yeah guys, this concludes my video for today. I hope you enjoyed this mod guide. I hope you found it informative. Please like, share, subscribe, all that social media stuff. And yeah guys, see you in the next one.